What do we do now, sir?
Keep working on the engines.
There's nothing wrong with them, sir. There's nothing wrong with any part of this boat. We've checked everything.
Then check again.
Divers?
That's impossible.
There's something out there, sir.
Forest section here, sir. We're being attacked.
Oh, this is the captain. What's happening?
Someone's coming in, sir. Through the escape compartments.
Shut off forward and aft escape compartments.
Aye, aye, sir.
What's happening, man?
They're coming in, sir. They're...
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always, we are joined with my co-host, who's formerly known as...
We are joined by my co-host. Is that,
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm on the show. Okay, hello, I'm Scott. That was a weird introduction.
I was, it's been a runner. It's been a long setup for that payoff. You know, in the previous weeks where I keep changing up how I introduce you. That's the latest one.
I hate
it. This week we are covering parts 3 and 4 of the Sea Devils story, as we will be covering Sea Devils basically all month because it is a ridiculously long story, as you'll see in this episode, these two parts where basically nothing happens. But before we jump into those episodes, I do have a bit of on this day trivia for episode 3. Episode 3 aired on the 11th of March 1972, which, as always with Classic Who, it was a Saturday. It was, at the time of recording, 49 years, 11 months, and 25 days ago. I think it will be approaching the 50th anniversary for it when this episode comes out.
When this episode comes out, it'll be tomorrow's the 50th anniversary, which is partly why we're doing this, which is fun.
A fun time, isn't it? On this day in history, which is my new favorite segment because researching this bit's really fun for things that happened on this day throughout history. So, in 1702, on the 11th of March, the first ever London daily newspaper is founded.
Ooh.
Interesting fact. In 1867, the Grand Mauna Loa volcano erupted. Ooh. And then, in 1892, there was the first ever public game of basketball.
What?
Yeah.
Wait. Where? Public?
Springfield versus Mass. Or
As
Springfield,
in The
Mass.
Simpsons.
Yeah, as in The Simpsons Springfield. But yeah, 1892, first public basketball game on the 11th of March.
Damn, that's weird. That's what? Weird.
Yeah. 1953, on the 11th of March, there was the first woman army doctor who was commissioned, known as Faye Margaret Adams. And, if you want to realize how close history is, she's still alive.
Jesus Christ. It's amazing how old this episode is. 50 years. It feels like a lifetime ago, but just feels like also just yesterday, because it's not that long. Like 1978, what is it, 2? Was only like 20. It was only like 20 odd years before I was born, which is insane. It's like the same distance as the time I was born to now.
Yeah. And
it's crazy.
So much changed between that. Not so much has changed between, your birth and now, other than phones and computers are better.
Yeah, that's how old I am.
In 1960, the Pioneer 5 launched, which was a satellite that orbits the sun between Earth and Venus. Then, in 1977, on the 11th of March, the rings of Uranus are discovered.
Nice.
And then they also discovered the rings of Uranus shortly after.
Ooh, high five.
And then that's all I've got for on this day in history. It was a pretty interesting day, the 11th of March. A lot happens on the 11th of March. So I was looking in. Both the songs are the same as they were last week, so I won't bother mentioning those. But I was looking into what the top film is. And the top film in the US, because the UK box office numbers are so incredibly hard to come by for this era, in the US was a film called The Hospital. It reached number 1 in its 12th week of being in the cinemas. So it was in cinemas for a very, very long time before it hit number 1. And I just
and anyone noteworthy in it?
Nobody whose name that I recognize, but this is the interesting part, because I was reading it and I went, I have to mention this on the show. So I'll just read you the synopsis, and you figure out why I wanted to read it on the show. Okay?
Okay, so, sure.
I'll start again. At a Manhattan teaching hospital, the life of Dr. Bok, the chief of medicine, is in disarray. He has left his wife, his children don't talk to him, and his once beloved teaching hospital is falling apart. I have a whole heap more which I want to read, but I just have to mention it's goddamn Bok. He became a doctor.
and if anyone's listening who's not familiar with Bok, go back to our Demons episode. He's a little guy with wings. He's a little gargoyle man. We love him. We love Bok around here.
Yeah. He's our boy. I want to read more of the plot because this film sounds insane. So, the hospital is dealing with the sudden deaths of 2 doctors and a nurse. These are attributed to the coincidental or unavoidable failures to provide accurate treatment. At the same time, administrators must deal with a protest against the hospital's annexation of an adjacent and decrepit apartment building. The annexation is to be used for a drug rehabilitation center. The building's current occupants demand that the hospital find them replacement housing before the building is demolished, despite the building being condemned some time before. Dr. Bok admits to impotence and has thoughts of suicide, but falls in love with Barbara Drummond, a patient's doctor who came with her father from Mexico for his treatment. This temporarily gives Dr. Bok something to live for after Barbara challenges and engages with him. The deaths are discovered to have been caused by Barbara's father as retribution for the inhumanity of modern medical treatment. Drummond takes no personal responsibility, claiming his victims would have been saved if they had received prompt, appropriate treatment, but they did not. Dr. Bok and Barbara use a final, accidental death of a doctor at the hospital to cover Drummond's misdeeds. Barbara makes plans to fly with her father back to Mexico. Dr. Bok at first intends to go with them, but at the last minute, driven by his sense of obligation, he insists on staying behind at the hospital so that it will not descend into chaos.
This sounds like an entire season of a soap opera.
I know, it sounds mental, doesn't it?
It sounds like just 200 episodes of a soap opera set at a hospital, and everything happens. They're running out of ideas. They're just throwing everything at the kitchen sink.
Yep.
Fucking insanity.
It was written by a man called Paddy Chayefsky, and he was awarded the 1972 Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. This film won an Oscar.
Jesus Christ.
Chayefsky also narrates the film, was one of the producers, and had complete control over the casting and the content of the film.
But
he didn't direct it.
Right.
So what did the director do?
But yeah, it looks like George C. Scott is in it. That's a good actor there. He's from Doctor Strangelove, A Christmas Carol. He's from the movie They Might Be Giants, which the band They Might Be Giants stole the name from.
Or maybe...
Yeah, it's a weird sounding movie, but yeah, I need to watch it now.
Yeah,
How long is it? From the
don't...
description, it sounds like it's a 4-hour-long movie.
Well, it's from the 1970s, so it probably is.
Yeah.
Let's find out. The Hospital, 1972. It is 1 hour 43.
Jesus, it's a short runtime for all that plot.
It has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That
Granted,
plot line...
Only
that
from 13
plot,
reviews, but...
Compared to this episode of Doctor Who, that plot must be very quick.
It's got nothing but good reviews. I've got to search out this movie and watch it. It's,
who watches the hospital? It's coming soon to you.
Yeah. No, it sounds mental. It sounds mental. But that's all I've got for the On This Day segment. I just thought that part was very, very interesting.
Well, you know what else happened on this day? The Sea Devils episode 3 aired. Segway, boy.
Yeah, and everybody watching it was like, wow, that's 20 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. Because it's not a good episode. It's fine. It's better than episode 4. It's better than episode 4.
It's better in episode 2.
Is it?
But we'll get
because
to
I feel
that.
like a solid chunk of this is in episode 2.
True, you got a good point there.
Anyway, yeah, into the episode. Ooh, play clip. There we go. That was a smooth transition. Right.
Okay, what the fuck, BritBox? Sorry, something went wrong. We are currently experiencing issues playing your video. Fuck you.
Wow. They don't like you then.
Okay, now it's playing episode 4 now. Oh, fuck's sake, I have to scroll all the way down.
It's season 9, episode 11.
Yes, 9/11, I know. Put that in the episode. Okay, I'm good now.
Okay, right.
No doubt, Doctor, you're wondering why I sent for you.
Your usual childish desire to gloat, perhaps?
How much have you told UNIT?
Everything. I sent them a full report as soon as Miss Grant spotted you at the naval base.
And yet you came back here to investigate in person. Interesting. You know, I wonder whether you're telling me the truth.
You'll find out soon enough.
You realize, of course, that I could kill you here and now.
And how would you explain that away to Colonel Trenchard? I'm hardly in a position to attack you now, am I?
Do you think I really care what Trenchard thinks?
Whatever you're up to, you still need Trenchard's cooperation. You're still a prisoner here, you know.
My dear Doctor, I can walk out of here any time I choose.
Then why don't you?
Because this place makes a good base for my operations. You see, I'm planning to contact our reptilian friends.
How do you know about them?
Oh, from the Time Lord's files.
More stolen information.
Naturally.
Well, why do you want to contact them?
Those reptiles, Doctor, were once the rulers of this earth. And with my help, they can be so again.
Are you watching from the sword fight?
Well, I'll mention the sword fight, but that's where my episode is at the moment. So I might fast forward through the sword fight, honestly. I can't believe they played it in full. Like, so
well, you
good.
know.
But at least okay, I'm just going to start the clip here before I even see the next clip. So the episode begins with us watching the sword fight in its entirety again. That we ended the last episode with. It honestly threw me for a loop. I thought I put the wrong episode on.
Well, the reason we had to replay this sword fight is because the episode ran under time, like by 2 or 3 minutes. So we just threw this in. As
you can tell.
Filler.
You can tell. You can tell that's the problem.
And we'll get to the end of the episode to explain why this episode lost some time, but
okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay, but what I really enjoy about them replaying it this episode, it means that there are 2 separate scenes in this 20-minute episode where the Doctor stops to eat a sandwich.
Yes.
He's the hungriest man alive.
There's honestly something about John Pertwee and his love for sandwiches, because I was watching the Silurians not so long ago, and yeah, in that episode he was eating a sandwich as well, just out of nowhere.
You know, maybe it was just a deal he made with the studio so they wouldn't have to take breaks as often. He'll just have his break on camera. Yeah.
And I love how he just chews for like a solid 5 seconds just to get his words out.
Yeah, it's compelling
it's
TV.
Perfect.
So the actual episode begins like exactly at the 2-minute mark. Like that's where the cliffhanger opens, and where it should open if this was a proper full-length episode. But instead there's 2 minutes of garbage you've seen before. Well, it's not garbage, it's a fun sword fight, but you've seen it before. It loses its charm when it ends and starts an episode back to back.
But yeah, the part where the Master throws his knife at the Doctor was supposed to be originally a gun pointed at him. But his hesitation would have been whether or not to shoot the Doctor, because if he shot the Doctor, his hold on Trenchard would have been destroyed, because obviously he's been hypnotized. Which I think the knife works better as a cliffhanger, because you don't see where it lands. It just goes directly to the Doctor.
Yeah, and I also feel like communicating across that the Master's not going to shoot the Doctor because he's going to lose control over Trenchard is something that Classic Who wouldn't have managed to do.
Yeah, it's something. It's something that would require like very good camera work and just a lot of patience in terms of just setting it up and just having Roger Delgado like prepare for the moment.
Yeah, it would. The way that they would do it is they would shoot. They'd have him hesitate, and then he wouldn't shoot. And you would just be made to assume that that's why. And then, like, if you read the behind the scenes, you'd be like, oh yeah, that was why he did that. But yeah, no, the knife makes it way easier.
Yeah. It would definitely be something for the novelization of the episode.
Yeah.
Like a whole page of dialogue just of the Master's internal thoughts.
So the Master throws the knife towards the Doctor, and it misses because Trenchard like interrupts. Trenchard, if you don't remember, is the man who talks like this. He really likes golf. That's who Trenchard is. He interrupts, and he's like, "Oh, what the bloody hell's going on?" And then he pulls his best Boris Johnson when he says he'll have a full inquiry into the shenanigans that went on into this room when nobody was looking. And the Doctor's like, "Are you joking? He threw a knife at me. You watched him throw a knife at me. What are you on about?" What I don't understand is the Doctor doesn't realize that Trenchard's brainwashed for this entire episode, possibly into the next.
Yeah, I'm confused by that because it kind of reads as he kind of sometimes does realize he's been hypnotized, but at the same time, not really, because there's a moment later on where the Doctor's like, "Oh, the Master's probably got a hold on you," or something like that, but it's very confusing. It kind of goes wishy-washy depending on just the scene. And like, putting the Master in there in the first place is just ridiculous. Like, he's going to hypnotize everyone in the room. And also, that reminds me, we spoke last week about how the Master hasn't hypnotized anyone for a while. But you remembered that in The Sound of Drums, the Series 3 final, he hypnotized the entire Earth with his...
Yeah, he hypnotized the Earth. So, and I mentioned last week as well that I thought John Sim did something, and then literally we stopped recording. I was editing it, and I went, "Oh my god, this was what it was." So yeah, no. See, can we get our Doctor Who fan badges back, please?
I kind of like that as a way to hypnotize better, just a subconscious.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes sense in the way that hypnotism is real, or hypnotism is real. Whereas
I mean, it works in the same way as like slogans or anything like that. For people
listening, I was staring at that.
But yeah, I think the Master hasn't done the whole staring at the person to hypnotize them in quite a while. I wonder if that's ever going to come back.
I don't think I would like it if it did come back. I think it's very much of its time. I think if the Master's going to hypnotize somebody, they can't just have magical abilities. They have to find a way to encode that with some semblance of scientific reasoning behind it.
But remember, the Doctor still sometimes has telepathic abilities. That's a Time Lord trait, I guess, just to hypnotize people, but he's evil.
Okay, but I would believe it if the Master was headbutting everybody to hypnotize them. Like
Matt Smith in what episode was that?
I don't remember. I feel like I have an
James Corden episode, I think.
Yeah. Headbutt them to transfer the memories. Yeah. It's stuff like that where it's kind of silly, goofy fun. But say, what's his name? Sasha
Darwin or something like that. Give me a second.
That sounds right.
Sasha Baron Cohen. No. Dawan.
Yeah, but it's probably pronounced Darwin.
Yeah, Darwin.
Yeah, Sasha Darwin. He comes back as the Master for Jodie's final episode, which is pretty much. I don't think it's actually confirmed, but it's heavily implied. No. It's heavily implied because the Master's coming to kill you. Said Time.
Oh, God, don't remind me that Time is an actual person
and a planet. If Sasha Darwin is just suddenly going around to everybody going, "Ooh, look into my eyes." I don't think. I think it would be too cheesy. Although, now I have that image in my head, I might believe it.
And to be fair, he did kind of this current Master, Sasha Darwin, kind of brought back the whole shrinking people, just turning them to action figures.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
that's
was fun
something
as well.
from the classic era.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, but I think it would give his master something to do that would be different anyway, because right now he's kind of like the worst parts of John Sim and Missy combined into a plastic cartoon man.
Yeah,
but...
too much of the Masters is just cartoon. Like, I love Anthony Ainsley. He's too much of a cartoon. Eric Roberts was a bit cartoony. John Sim was a bit cartoony at times. Missy was very cartoony.
I loved Missy though. Like, I think when Missy first, the thing that I liked about Missy, because I think she might be my favorite incarnation of the Master. What I really liked about Missy is when she first showed up, Moffat just had her kill literally everybody left, right, and center. Like she just zap, 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 zap. She took no prisoners. Which made her, at least to me, feel like a real threat. And I loved her relationship with Capaldi. Like, her relationship with Capaldi was just chef kiss good.
Yeah, her and Capaldi was like the best part of her Doctor, especially towards season 10. I'm not too keen on the season 8 Missy, because that's the part where she becomes a giant head at some point. And a giant holographic head, and it just gets way too silly. But yeah.
Yeah, I liked her. Peter Capaldi's 2-part finale on his last season is spectacular, and a large part of that is due to Missy and John Sim.
Yeah, I wish that was Capaldi's final episode and not Twice Upon a Time.
I like Twice Upon a Time, but whatever.
We'll get to that.
Anyway, we should actually talk about what happened in that scene. The Master, the Doctor, like storms out the room because the Trenchard's like, "You've got to get out of here. Have an inquiry." And then he like starts asking the Master what he was planning on doing, if he was planning on actually killing the Doctor, which is what, like, speaking about being brainwashed. I'm really confused here because the Master has to justify his actions against the Doctor and being like, "Oh no, it was in self-defense. The Doctor was attacking me." But Trenchard's brainwashed. You could tell him whatever the hell you like. What's he gonna do?
Yeah, just stare deep into his eyes and be like, forget about what just happened.
Shut up.
That's all you have to do.
Shut up.
and also, I presume the Master can get deeper control over Trenchard and not question things in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, just be like, do not question anything I am doing. Just behave as normal and just ignore me. That's all you have to really do.
Yeah. But instead, he tries to justify it. And that the Doctor had attacked him first, and that Trenchard has to now arrest the Doctor and keep him under lock and key. And Trenchard's just like, "Oh yeah, okay, well, it's shall do that." Joe's left, by the way, and the Master's like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, don't worry, I told the guards to stop her as she's coming out, so problem solved." And then we cut to Joe walking down some steps. So the guards like tease Joe with the keys and then take them away from her because he's an ass. And then he's like, "You've got orders to go back inside." Joe's not having any of it, and she decks the 2 guards and runs away. And this is where my first issue with the soundtrack comes in, and it's going to be in it for the rest of it. The soundtrack doesn't act as a soundtrack, it acts as sound effects. Every hit that Joe does and every impact that the guards do has the soundtrack sting. And it just sounds like it's like machines clattering together. Like, it's...
Again, this is Radiophonics Workshop. It's all like electronic music, and it's 1970s electronic music. It just does not fit. Like, the only way electronic music I think could fit in this story is if like the Sea Devils were mechanical men or something like that. That's
But like, I feel like the music itself would fit, but it's not getting used as music.
Yeah,
it's getting used as sound effects. Like,
it's not great, is it?
Yeah, it's honestly, it took me out of the episodes. Like, every single time there was an action, I was just waiting for the like, it doesn't fit at all.
But also, I speaking of Joe, I just love the way she just completely knocks those 2 guys out. That's some great action. It's not believable at all, but it's very silly and just fun, and it's something for Joe to do other than, go to this other room and just make some tea for us.
Yeah, there's the ice cream truck back.
Yeah, did you hear it?
I did hear it this time. I've never heard it before, but I did hear it this time. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that loud. But yeah, an ice cream truck passes by my house like 7:30 every single night.
And Scott refuses to buy the ice cream. I keep telling him he should get the ice cream, but
I look out my window like 3 times a week. I never fucking see this ice cream truck. So I don't know where it is, and I don't want to get kidnapped. So no, thank you.
So we cut to the doctor who's chilling in a room, and he's like, "Hey, guard guy that's standing there, why do you think Trenchard's working with the Master? Could he be brainwashed? I just don't believe that. Trenchard, of all people, he told me he can't be brainwashed, and so why would I not believe that?" But the guard doesn't respond to him, and then eventually Trenchard comes in, and he's like, "Oh, hey, doctor, by the way, you're a prisoner, and I'm going to rip up your unit pass. Ha 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 ha." It's a pretty decent scene, I think. I really like John Pertwee's performance. I think he's strong. Well, I mean, he's been strong every time I've seen him in the John Pertwee episodes we've covered, but I think he's really, really good in these couple episodes where he's a prisoner. I really like listening to him be serious.
Yeah, I really like how he's kind of just restrained himself. He's like, if I was a doctor, I'd be just knocking out these 2 men because he can knock out everyone. But he's just like,
he's the karate doctor.
He's like, I'll go along with you. I'll get tied up to a chair later on. That's fine. It's kind of my kink, actually.
It's an interesting wee scene where Trenchard is he's like a villain.
Yeah.
He's like full on villain in this episode. Even when he gets on the phone at the end of the scene, and he's like, "What do you mean she got away? Get her!" And he's got this really like menacing voice on him suddenly.
He also says, "We will shoot you if you fucking leave, Doctor." Except he doesn't swear because this is a kids show. But yeah.
It's a pretty interesting turn for Trenchard. I miss Golf Trenchard. He was a nice man.
Was he nice or
no,
just
he was
annoying?
Just boring.
But also the guard in the room, the one that doesn't speak.
Mustache.
His mustache is
amazing.
insane.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, I was thinking
it's perfect.
It's the most 70s mustache you'll ever see, and it is perfect. It's like sculpted, it's thick, it's bushy. Like, that man was made to wear a mustache.
The Brigadier would be jealous of that mustache, I swear to you.
Oh my god, right. We cut to Joe, who's like hiding behind some bushes as some guards run by. And like, it's a fine scene of Joe hiding and running away, but the soundtrack is it's like comical because it's like sounds like somebody running like a robot, like but like higher pitch. And then as Joe literally starts running, the soundtrack picks up to match the pace of her feet. So it's like it's matching every single movement she's making as if she's the one making the soundtrack noise. Like
every key hit just sounds like it's picked at random as well. It doesn't really make a tune that's memorable. It's just
yeah, but like way higher. Like
it's like a keyboard cut. Just
yeah.
Do 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 do.
Yeah, it's dreadful, and it just keeps getting worse. Every time we see Joe running, she has that soundtrack underneath her, matching her every movement. Like.
Maybe it's just her shoes. Maybe her shoes are magical and they just
amazing.
Make plonking songs.
Yeah, it's amazing none of the guards hear her. Though maybe it's like the Cyberman mouse, Cybermats. Yeah, it's like the Cybermats where they make that insane beeping that nobody can seem to hear.
There's also insane beeping in this episode later on. It just does not stop.
Oh yeah, it goes across multiple scenes. Like that's part of the soundtrack. It was like hard to listen to with earphones, but we'll get to that bit. That bit sucked. So we cut to Trenchard and the Master. The Master's doing some work on a motherboard. He's what's the word I'm looking for here? Not welding, but like miniature welding. It's got a word.
I couldn't tell you.
It's escaped me.
He's just doing sciencey stuff. That's all I know.
It's a small. Soldering. He's soldering the motherboard. That's the word I was looking for. That was painful. He's soldering a motherboard. When Trenchard comes in and he's like, "Oh, we got the doctor locked up, by the way." And he's like, "Cool, what about the girl?" And he's like, "Oh, that's a fun motherboard." And he's like, "Hey, I asked about the girl." And he's like, "Oh, well, she got away." And the Master's like, "Oh, well, find her." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, no, we will." And he's like, "Cool." Which I think that's like I just recited it line for line there. And then he asks to see the doctor again, even though 2 minutes ago they were having a sword fight and he tried to kill him. Now he wants to talk to him, and Trenchard was like, oh, I've got to take the doctor away from you because you tried to kill him. And now he's like, yeah, sure, I'll deliver the doctor to you. Why would you ever try to hurt him? Like, you know, the motivations are a bit whack.
The thing about classic Doctor Who is it's always a bit back and forth to the same two locations over and over again. It's like, oh, now I'm going to fight you. Oh, now can you come back, please? It's like...
Wait, come back. I need to talk to you a bit more.
It's like, oh yeah, we only fought because we had to have a cliffhanger last week, but now we can talk. Yeah. Now we can talk. It's good.
So we cut to... Ooh, what's his name? That's a challenge.
Hart?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. We cut to Hart, the Navy man, and he's talking to another Navy man who will come to meet a bit more, and we'll come to learn about a bit more in some pretty decent scenes. Who's a captain of a submarine, and he's like, you know, there's something going on at this base, because, you know, you might have forgotten, because we're 3 episodes deep into the Sea Devil special, but there are Sea Devils in this episode.
Yeah, I was 100% going to say this scene is just to remind viewers, oh yeah, there are Sea Devils, because they haven't been featured at all, like, since like 5 minutes after episode 2. Like,
they do nothing in this episode and the episode after, like,
which is a huge shame, because it's the Silurians again. It's like the Silurians were utilized so much better, and even in the next appearance of the Sea Devils in the 5th Doctor era, they're just doing whatever the fucking Silurians tell them to do. They're not a character at all. They're just a background thing.
I think they suffer from they decided to bring the Master back for this story.
Yeah.
And so he gets all the screen time that otherwise would be going to the Sea Devils. You know?
Yeah. The thing with Delgado's Master is he's always working with someone evil, which is like every episode, like the Autons with Bok and the demons. Mm-hmm. It's like every episode he's just working with other evil people, and it's just like, can we focus on the evil people sometimes in this episode? Just have a Master do an evil plan by himself. He doesn't need alien to do shit for him. I don't think that.
Yeah, but you know, the Sea Devils, they don't do anything, but we get reminded about them in that Hart is like to the submarine captain, take your submarine and test out this brand new technology called sonar. Never heard of it. Don't think it's going to pick up. And, you know, so Hart, the captain's like, okay, cool, yeah, but there's been a lot of missing ships recently. And he's like, yeah, there's been 70 in the last 10 years. I'm like, that feels like a lot of ships to go missing in the last 10 years.
Also 10 years. That's a long time for Sea Devils to be around, unless it's not the Sea Devils. Unless it's something else.
I assume it has to be the Sea Devils if it's around that area, yeah.
But it's been a problem for that long, and the Doctor is just now figuring out, oh yeah, the Sea Devils probably are involved.
Yeah, but to be fair, like, they don't do anything, so the Doctor probably kept forgetting about them. Yeah.
They're like with silence.
Yeah. And the submarine captain's like, okay, cool, I'll take my submarine out there then, goodbye. I'm sure nothing will go wrong, and he'll have a lovely trip. Then the receptionist to Hart is like, but what about the Doctor? Maybe we should cut and see what's happening with the Doctor right now. And then we cut to find out what's happening with the Doctor. So we cut to the Doctor getting led into the Master's room as was set up previously. And it starts with a bit of comedy and leads into a really good scene, I think. And I think both land. I think both work really well. I love the comedy between the Master and Trenchard, where they just nod at each other, expecting the other person to do what they were supposed to be doing. They work really well together. And it's the first bit of comedy that they actually have.
Yeah, and there's a point where the Doctor gets his handcuffs removed, but only to be tied to a chair instead. That's a great bit of comedy. How very kind of you. How very unkind of you.
Yeah. It's, some quippy, almost modern Who-esque humor on display. It was very, very nice.
Also, I've never seen a James Bond movie, but this feels very inspired by James Bond. Just having the villain gloat childishly as the hero is chained to a chair. It's a very James Bond-esque moment.
Yeah.
And also, just Delgado and John Pertwee are just so good together.
Yeah, it's my favorite stuff in Doctor Who, isn't it? The good guy and the bad guy sit down for a chat, and it's literally what they're doing. Where they sit down, and the Master's like, "Let me tell you my evil plan. So I'm going to contact the Sea Devils." And the Doctor's like, "You're what? How do you even know about the Sea Devils?" And the Master says the Time Lord's files. What?
Yeah, it's a little bit vague on what the Time Lords actually do. I guess we keep files on of our alien life, and the Master somehow stole it.
I could understand the Time Lords keeping files on alien life. If they can travel through time, it's like what better service do you provide other than being an archivist? Know, so like what other purpose do you have? Isn't that the whole point of Time Lords? They're just supposed to watch and not interfere. Archive what happened, sort of thing. So okay, I can justify that in my head. But yeah, the Master stole it for some reason. And how did he know that was the one to steal? Or did he just grab some files at random?
I can just imagine him just grabbing a whole fucking fucking case of them, just like running away,
running out with pages flying left and right behind him.
He could probably land his TARDIS inside like a whole desk of files and just take it away just land and then go away. It's just, Don't
you think it's weird? We've never seen the Master inside the Master's TARDIS.
Well, not at this point in the terms of these 2 episodes, but
but I mean like in the history of Doctor Who.
We have seen him in his TARDIS before. There's a point like in Logopolis, whatever that episode is called, like the Tom Baker season final.
Okay, well, I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen Classic Who, but
yeah.
I think also in Terror of the Autons, his TARDIS is seen. It's like it's like a stable. It's like a caravan, like a circus.
Oh, okay.
It's been a long time since I've seen that episode.
I assume his chameleon circuit works.
Yeah, most of the time anyway, because in Logopolis, it's another police box, but he lands right next to the Doctor, and he also lands inside of the Doctor's TARDIS. Okay, which is a great bit of fun.
That does sound fun. But I forgot where we were. The Doctor and the Master are chatting. The Master's like, I want to see the Sea Devils. And the Doctor's like, why do you want to see the Sea Devils? And he's like, well, they once ruled the Earth, and like that's kind of my whole deal. So I was thinking we could be best mates.
Basically, every Roger Delgado episode is him wanting to be friends with other aliens and just rule the world together. That's like his shtick.
Yeah, he just wants a friend to rule the world with, and the Doctor's too much of a stick in the mud to say yes.
Also, we haven't really talked about the Sea Devils as a concept yet, but I really like the concept of the Sea Devils because if you think about it, alien life could just come from under the water because something like 5% of it is explored. We don't know if there's intelligent life underneath there. I think we talked about this before.
I don't know if we've gotten into any specifics about it, but yeah, I mean, I guess theoretically it's possible, but the chances of it were like next to zero, I would say, because just the amount of atmospheric pressure you get, like that's the reason why we haven't explored so far deep into the ocean, because it becomes like unbearable, whereas going into space is really easy because you just have to deal with one atmospheric pressure change from 1 to 0, which is why we haven't explored the ocean too much. And also, it's just kind of full of gross fish. That's what we've discovered. There's just a weird looking fish the further you go down.
Gross fish and a lot of pish.
Yeah, but what if you keep going down far enough? You go down far enough, and then at some point you end up coming back out.
Yeah, you just go to Australia because you go so low.
That's how it works.
Yes. You dig deep enough, and you just go to the other side of the world.
Yeah. I've seen a globe. I know it's inside the Earth, and it's a collection of whiskey.
Dude, you could just build a slide and just slide your way down to Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Easy. Why haven't we done that? We should do that.
Yeah. See, it's a conspiracy. So we're cutting about a bit, coming up to this next scene as we cut to Hart, who's radioing the submarine people. He's like, okay, go under the water, you're a submarine, woo. And then we cut to some really pretty decent footage of a submarine. I assume it's stock footage of a submarine, but it's very cool.
Yes, it's stock footage from the Navy, which it really works in this episode. I think the stock footage really looks good because This episode has Navy involvement in the first place, so it doesn't seem like it's just cut into random footage. It really fits well.
Yeah, and it also has some decent, what looks like miniature work later on with the like submarine sinking and stuff like that.
Yeah, we will get to that. 'Cause there's a whole story behind that. It's gonna be fun.
Interesting. But we cut back to Hart, and the receptionist says some stuff to him, and every time she says it, I find my brain zoning out. She starts talking about taxis and Land Rovers, and I'm like, what are you on about?
Yeah, she's like, oh, why didn't they just take the vehicles they came to the castle and return it to here? And it's like, yeah, she's figuring out that the Doctor is probably being kidnapped and Joe's on the run or something like that. Right. It's like, yeah, we as the audience know this. We don't need to watch other characters try to work out in real time what's going on. It's kind of boring.
But how else are they supposed to cover 20 minutes, Scott?
Yeah, I know. It's just...
Could play the sword fight again for you.
Let's play it, but this time it's set to Disco Inferno.
Yeah, they'll have the Doctor and the Master will sit down and they'll be like, remember when we had that sword fight? And then you crossfade, right, to the start of the sword fight, and you just watch it again. And then you cut back, and you're like, yeah, that was a good sword fight. Remember when I said this bit? And then you crossfade again. You watch the sword fight again. Yeah,
yeah. I am honestly surprised the Doctor Who doesn't use like more previous footage, like a clip show. Like that feels like something Classic Who would have done at some point, because it's like 700 episodes. They must have run out of ideas at some point. They just needed to.
I think the thing that made them had to keep coming up with new ideas is seemingly they just like threw away every episode once they finished recording it, so they couldn't create a clip show because they didn't have the footage.
Yeah, God, that I can't believe he just destroyed like hundreds of episodes. It's insane to think about compared to like Star Trek, which you can watch in like HD, like in proper film stock. It's insane just how British television worked in the day.
Yeah. Speaking of Star Trek, we're in the submarine. Very briefly, and the guy says something to some guy. He goes over to the radio, and this is where the Star Trek bit comes in for me. Multiple times people keep saying blow Q.
Okay, I was thinking that because I was watching this thinking, oh yeah, blow, I get it, blow job. I mean, you just came up with a Q part and it just makes the joke so much better. I was trying to work in a blowjob joke as well.
Yeah, see, my brain just that big. For people that don't know, Q is a classic character from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Probably
he's also in Picard.
Yeah, he's in the new season of Picard that's just starting. Series 2 of Picard, which I haven't seen Series 1 yet. I still have a lot of Star Trek to catch up on. But yeah, no, Q's a great character, and they're showing there's love in Doctor Who when they're blowing him. But the submarine people pull out the periscope, and they're like, hey, let's take a look around. And the guy's like, what are we looking for? And the other guy's like, I don't know, nobody tells me nothing. Yeah,
it feels like they should be warned that, oh yeah, there's some kind of sea creature that's trying to attack you. Be on the lookout. Like, they're not sure what the fuck is going on here. It's like poor health and safety.
So we're back with the Doctor and the Master. The Master is still going on about how he wants to see the human race get destroyed, because that'll really get him off. And then a guard comes in and he's like, oh, by the way, Trenchard wants to see you, Master. He wants to see you now. And the Doctor's like, oh, you better go because, you're still a prisoner. Because the Doctor hasn't figured out that Trenchard's brainwashed in this scene yet. It's annoying.
It's really kind of stupid, blunt of the Doctor to just not be like, oh yeah, the Trenchard is mind controlled, I'll try to snap him out of it. It's silly. But also, there's something about the Master just wanting to destroy the Earth because the Doctor is so fond of it. It's like a younger brother just wanting attention from the older brother.
Yeah, smashing his toy.
Yeah.
But then the Doctor's like, oh my god, I'm handcuffed. As we then cut away to... And I know we were speaking before about the cars.
Yeah.
And how they're like French cars imported over because French would look futuristic to the British audience because it's a different type of car than they're used to seeing. They take off the doors and stuff like it. What I wasn't expecting was for it to be the size of a Hot Wheel car.
Yeah, that thing is tiny.
Like, it is comically small, and it has like 6 men hanging off it. Like, it is hysterical. Like,
and also they just completely passed Joe. Like, Joe's right there, and they just pass her by. It's just kind of stupid, and it's like 3 men are just on the lookout for her. It's
yeah,
these are stupid ass guards. I'm telling you. Maybe the master brainwashed him a bit too much.
yeah. He smoothed out their brain. But this is also a scene where Jo starts running, and the soundtrack matches each one of her footprints to make it seem like she's producing the sound.
Have you ever seen that Family Guy episode with Randy Newman, and he just makes music to whatever he sees, and he goes left leg, right leg, left leg, right leg.
I've not, but yeah, that's basically what this is. While we're watching Jo run around the building, we quickly cut to Trenchard and the Master for a scene that takes like 5 seconds. Where Trenchard's like, "Oh, Hart's on his way," and the Master's he's like, "Well, Hart's on his way. What should I do?" And the Master goes, "Lie."
Again, it feels like something a master would have told him before. Just make up lies. It's
we've seen Trenchard lie already because he's been lying to the Doctor this entire time.
Yeah.
Why would he be confused at this point?
Just be like, "Oh yeah, Joe and the Doctor left like half an hour ago. You must have missed him."
Yeah.
Do.
I genuinely hate it. Like, it's the most distracting soundtrack I've ever seen in an episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah,
like it's bad. It's really bad. It gets worse though. That's the worst bit, isn't it? Because it gets unlistenable at one point.
Yeah, the best part about this scene coming up is just the silence.
Mm-hmm. So Jo runs up to the window where the Doctor is hidden, and she's obviously they can't communicate because apparently the window's so thick she can't just shout, or I guess she doesn't want to get spotted. That would make more sense.
Yeah, that makes sense because there's a guard just right outside the door. If the Doctor could hear her, the guard could probably hear her.
So she starts mimicking like her plan, and watching it twice and knowing what the plan is, I don't get it. I can't read what she's actually trying to say.
Katie Manning was told to improvise sign language, and you can just tell that it's improvised. Like I'm surprised the Doctor understands.
Well, that was it. Is when I was watching it, I was like, if I was writing this episode of Doctor Who, the second that Jo leaves, I would have the Doctor go, "I have no idea what she was saying," like just mutter to himself, like, "What is the plan?"
It kind of reminds me of the opening of season 4, with the Doctor and Donna at opposite sides of the room. They're just peering through a window.
Yeah, but they're like, it's you. Yeah.
That reminds me of this. I presume Russell T Davies probably took inspiration from this, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure it definitely, even if he didn't consciously do it, probably done, unconsciously.
Because, I mean, he was 9 when this episode aired.
So, we stick with Jo as she walks around a building and into the building, where there's not really much of anything to note, really. It's my favorite classic Who trope that I've noticed. It's really obvious in The Hand of Fear, but where it's, they'll front load the episode with about 10 minutes of story, then go, "Oh no," and just pad it out with people walking through a corridor.
Yeah, just watching Jo Grant just tiptoe across like a castle for like 30 seconds with do. This music sounds like it was probably created in like 2 days at most.
Oh yeah, no. The guy saw the final cut and went, "Okay, I got it. Don't worry." And he just followed impulses as he was watching.
That's what the director has deep regret over this soundtrack. He was asking too much from him. Just make it experimental.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit too experimental. It's experimental to the point where it's not experimental anymore because it just sounds so outdated and just trash. It sounds like sound effects, as we've said before.
Yeah, that's the difficult bit with it, is it doesn't sound like music. It doesn't sound like a soundtrack. Like, I could get behind a synth soundtrack, but asking for a synth soundtrack in a 1972 TV show, this low budget, is asking a lot.
As we said last week's episode, this guy making the music would return in the 80s, and I think he does a better job, because one of his most iconic episodes is Earthshock, and the music in that is pretty darn good.
Yeah, go back and watch it, and it's just do.
Every time the Cyberman moves her feet, just do. That should be the noise of a Cyberman stomping, I'm telling you.
Yeah, it would make them more intimidating. Okay, so I'm confused. So we cut to the doctor, and he's like, "Hey, guard!" And then he shouts, "Hey, guard!" to get the guard in, because obviously he's been timing it, so he knows Joe's about to come into the door. And the guard comes in, and he's like, "Yo, why are you shouting at me?" And the doctor's like, when am I gonna get out of here? This is a bit annoying. As Joe sneaks in behind him, and then the guard has a line that he's like, "Oh, you're better off here, doctor, than you are in one of the cells, so count yourself lucky." But isn't the doctor in the master's cell right now?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because the master was just in here working on his machine.
Okay, maybe he is. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the master's. I don't know if this counts as a cell. It's very confusing because it doesn't feel like a cell. It just feels like a room.
He's the only prisoner.
Yeah.
So why do they need other cells? Surely this is a cell.
This whole prison in a fucking castle idea is just a bit weird.
Yeah, it's it's one of those ideas where they went, "Where's the master? Oh, he's on like a prison island by himself," and that's where the idea stopped.
I feel like fucking like maybe blindfolding the master and maybe handcuffing him so he can't remove his blindfold would have been a better idea at some point.
Yeah,
it's a silly idea, but still, it would make more sense because every fucking guard is hypnotized here. Just he's living his life in just complete comfort. It's insane.
Yeah, though I tell you, Mustache Guard earned his money as an extra on this episode. He's like the main featured extra. He's in so many scenes with talking dialogue with the doctor. I hope he's alive today. I wonder if his mustache is still as glorious. I hope so. But Joe sneaks in, and then when the guard walks away, because he doesn't have peripheral vision, he doesn't see Joe. And then Joe waves to the doctor, and as she waves, the goddamn soundtrack matches her wave.
Another thing with the music, every time a character moves position, like they turn to the camera slightly, music happens. Whenever they sneak from behind the shadows, music happens. Whenever they walk downstairs, music happens. It's never ending. There was a moment earlier with just silence as the doctor and Joe were communicating through the window, and just, that was nice. I love silence. Be more silent, please.
That's it. You don't appreciate silence until you go a long time without it. Yeah.
Oh God, could you imagine your life to the soundtrack? You're just walking up the street and just you open the door and it goes doo.
Yeah, no, it'd be hell. We'd live in hell. Yeah, it's very interesting. So Joe goes over to the doctor's handcuffs, and she's like, "Oh, they're locked." And the doctor's like, quietly, he's like, "Get the screwdriver." And my modern Who head is expecting, let's pull the screwdriver out of your pocket or inside your jacket sleeve or something, because you've always got it on you. But no, Joe goes and gets a physical pair of screwdrivers and has to manually pick the lock.
Yeah, that's because the sonic screwdriver wasn't magic at this point.
But no, I would even say it's magic to undo. Like, undoing handcuffs is something a sonic screwdriver should be able to do.
I can't remember what the original intent for the sonic screwdriver was. It's been a while since I've watched Classic Who fully, but I can't remember him opening doors too much unless it was mechanical doors or something like that.
Yeah, but handcuffs are mechanical. Any lock is mechanical. It's
yeah, not in the same sense though. It's like more technological. I think,
suppose, but you know, I would
do.
argue anything you can do with a physical screwdriver, you should be able to do with a sonic screwdriver and then some. You know,
but also the best part of this moment of just Joe getting a screwdriver, just silence. And I think that's a good choice from the Music Man. I call it the Music Man. I think that's...
what are you gonna play? Or what can you play? Yeah. Would you not think the scene would be better with some as the screwdriver gets plugged into the handcuffs?
But yeah, the moments where Joe and the Doctor have to be silent and there's no music really works. That works because it's just silence. And also I can imagine kids being like, okay, don't make a noise, otherwise the Doctor will get into trouble.
Yeah, it's that thing, isn't it? You know, sometimes music can really help build up the tension in a scene.
Yeah.
And sometimes having no music is what really builds the tension, is what helps sell it, is putting you right in that environment.
It's like when you're watching Tom Cruise just dive into water and you instantly hold your breath and you're like, and you're just like, can Tom Cruise survive this? Can I hold my breath as well?
Actually, that's right. I'm feeling a little bit tipsy. I've been drinking quite a bit this evening. I'm drinking right now, so my mind's a bit foggy. But you mentioning Tom Cruise there flashed me into a thought I had recently.
Yes.
Jason Statham's the only action star who owns his height.
Yeah. How tall is he?
Like 3 foot. I imagine he's about the same size as Tom Cruise, but Tom Cruise, he wears high heel shoes and he angles everything to make him look tall. Jason Statham, is a short man and he just owns it. But yeah, not relevant, but thought I had.
I think Tom Cruise could be a pretty decent Sea Devil. He's small enough. He could be a tiny Sea Devil, man, and the neck wouldn't look so big,
And as far as we know, Scientologists believe in Sea Devils. So,
yeah, 100%.
So we are with Hart and Trenchard, where Trenchard's laying his heart. Well, he's laying his heart out, and he's like, Joe must have been mistaken when she said that she saw the Master at the naval base, because he's been here the whole time. We've got him under lock and key. Everything's okay. And Hart's like, well, can I see the Master? And he's like, oh no, I can't let you see the Master. That's against the rules. But and then some hemming and hawing. Gets his arm twisted. He's like, okay, I'll show you the Master. And he pulls up the Master on the CCTV footage that we've seen previously, and that made me be a bit confused.
Yeah, like, why is the CCTV footage enough reason for you not?
Yeah, and also because
Joe's.
the Doctor's in the Master's room where that camera is.
Yeah.
So where's that footage coming from?
I think he's just in a similar room. It's very
just
confusing.
In a different room where there's also a camera that's not been set up. Like.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hart doesn't try really hard in this. He's very much is just willing to believe whatever Trenchard says.
Yeah, I'm confused about why the Master doesn't simply just hide behind the door and be like, aha, I've got you, Hart, and hypnotize him so he doesn't. So he just goes away thinking, oh yeah, everything's fine. It feels so much easier.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
It's a bit silly, isn't it?
Yeah, Doctor Who silly? Never.
I don't believe it.
Okay. So here we have a submarine shot. It's also a model. And this got the producers in quite a bit of trouble. So Naval Intelligence gave him posters of nuclear submarines as a reference, and visual effects designer Peter Day altered the design from a toy he bought from Woolworths, as it was decided by Michael Bryant, the director, that one propeller would look silly and inaccurate on this submarine. So he added a second propeller from a bit he got from a washing machine, and he just glued it on. And the following Monday, after this episode aired, he got the producers got into trouble because they got real close to using a classified model. 2 men in uniform visited their office, looked over the footage and laughed because it looked nothing like the propeller. It turns out a retired rear admiral had phoned the Navy up mistakenly because he just thought it looked way too similar to like a classified model. So this whole crazy thing, just gluing on a second propeller is just enough to almost get him into trouble. And the producers couldn't legally talk about the story for decades because the Navy didn't want Russians finding out their secret design, which is fucking mental. You can buy a toy from Woolworths and have it look close enough to like a classified model.
Yeah, that's wild. That is absolutely wild. I will say though, it's some really good miniature work. I was really impressed with it.
Yeah, this whole thing really works. It's just it's just a model on a string. And there's an undersea backdrop, and there's smoke to make it look like it's underwater, and it really looks solid. Yeah. I think that's his strengths of classic Doctor Who. When they do the model work, it always looks pretty damn decent, I think.
Yeah. Even going back to Series 1 and Series 2, whenever they do model work, you can tell, like, oh, that's model work, but it's pretty high quality looking model work. So, yeah, they always do it decent. So, we go inside the submarine. They're scanning with their sonar, then suddenly they hit something and the sonar goes wild, and it goes so wild that it makes your ears bleed as well. It does a really, really good job of selling how wild it's gonna get. I really related to the guard going, "Oh, my ears!"
Also, the music in this scene kind of works because it kind of sounds like it's just a sonar going off.
It's just a sound effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not music, it's a sound effect. That's what it is.
I guess it is sound effect. Yeah. There's also a great bit at the end of this where like, oh no, we're in danger, and the shot just goes out of focus. That's really good camera work.
Yeah, I really like that. And then we cut to the submarine sitting like by you can't see anything around it. It's just the submarine in the depths of the ocean by itself, as everybody's like panicking that something's coming for them. It's that isolation I really like. I like all the submarine stuff. It's like genuine like horror.
Yeah, it really works well, and it really holds up well because it's just so simple yet really effective. And you can tell they're trying to be creative, and just the camera shot just going out of focus. That's so simple yet so effective.
Yeah. So we cut to the Master and Trenchard, where Trenchard's like, I can't keep lying. I've said so many lies, and the Master's like, no, don't worry. You've done a good job lying. I'm really impressed. I know he's not. The lying he's done is, oh, the Master's here, goodbye.
Yeah. And Hart looks totally suspicious. Yeah, that's good work. Good job.
Yeah. Then they go on to talk about the device that the Master's been making, and we find out that it's a device to communicate with the Sea Devils, and that is the perfect mimicry of a Sea Devil's device, and that it's going to absolutely work. And this is something, again, that gets me a bit confused, because the way that the Master sells this to Trenchard is that it's going to get the Sea Devils on their side, and they're going to work for them. And then later on, when we see the Master use the Sea Devils, for ill, Trenchard's like, what are you doing? Why are you using the Sea Devils like this? But why does Trenchard care? Because he's brainwashed. Unless he's not been brainwashed this entire time, and he's just working with the Master because he's naive.
Yeah, I think the whole Master brainwashing people just kind of doesn't make sense in this episode at all. It's just, and also there's a point where the Master leaves the room and he's like, oh yeah, I need a guard next with me, and I need to keep up appearance. Keep up appearance for who?
Everybody else is brainwashed. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Every guard is brainwashed. Everyone in the castle knows the situation who isn't brainwashed. Like, there's no one you're trying to trick here. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. There's really no consistency with the brainwashed plotline at all.
Yeah. Maybe it's a good thing we got rid of the Master's hypnosis.
Yeah, probably, because one, it makes the Master almost too OP, you know, and two, you have to come up with weird scenarios to get around it that don't work. I almost think that this story would be better if everybody was immune to the Master's brainwashing, and he had just genuinely convinced him that he's a good guy. You know, he had to turn up his charm that he's a good guy.
Maybe he convinces them that we need the Sea Devils, otherwise the Earth will be destroyed or something like that.
Yeah, he
uses his charm and wit to trick them, to con them. Because Roger Delgado feels like a con man, and he feels like a perfect con man. Even though he's evil, he feels like he's charming enough to pass off as a good guy.
Mm-hmm. The goatee makes you a bit more suspicious, but yeah. It's
God, I love his goatee. It's just perfect.
It's very villainous. He's got a big chin as well. He's got a big chin. Yeah, that helps sell it.
And it just has a big point at the end.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
A face for a villain, really.
God is so sad. He wasn't able to do more before his death. Well,
but there's the stuff with Trenchards. It's mostly pointless, other than to say like, this is the machine I'm working on. That's what the point of the scene is.
It's basically just to give the Master someone to communicate to, so we as an audience understand what he's doing.
Yeah. We cut to the Doctor and Joe, where Joe hides behind the door again. The Doctor calls the guard in after unlocking his handcuffs, and Joe crouches down behind him as if they're in like a schoolyard and they're about to knock over the guard, in which they do knock over, and then Joe karate chops the guard in the throat, in which the Doctor and Joe handshake, and then they have a little charming scene where they're at the open door and they're like, after you. No, after you. Oh, I insist, after you. You know, which is a bit of fun.
Okay, so as Joe is trying to get up, you'll see that she tries to adjust her trousers because they keep falling down. The fly keeps falling down because they shrank because of the water scenes, and she didn't have a spare pair, and just there's a whole lot of trouble with her trousers near the end of this episode. But the part where we're walking out of the room and we're like, oh yeah, after you, was unscripted, but it cuts right before John Pertwee starts laughing because he saw that her fly was down. He just starts laughing. Also, I don't know if you'll notice this, but there's a bit of a continuity error because of her trousers. When she entered the room, she put her handbag behind the door, but because she was distracted by her trousers, she forgot to pick up the handbag again, so she leaves the room without her handbag. And in the next scene, we'll see her handbag.
I didn't pick up on any. I didn't even pick up on her fly being down, her adjusting it. Now going back and watching it, her hand immediately goes to fix her trousers, then it cuts, and she's standing up and it's fine. If you didn't tell me, I in a million years would never have noticed that.
This is the type of stuff you'll learn when you just watch the DVDs. There's whole loads of special features, and there's a whole segment about her trousers. It's amazing. There's production notes when you're watching an episode, so you'll just be reading along with the episode and just be like, oh yeah, this actor was in so-and-so, and you'll learn stuff about behind-the-scenes trivia, and these DVDs are amazing. They're just so full of special features.
So we cut to Hart and the receptionist very briefly, where basically he's like, let's find out where the Doctor and Joe are. You know, they've been gone for a while. Let's find out where they are. Then we cut to the Master and Trenchard, where they're discovering the knocked out mustache guard. And they're like, oh, what happened here? And he's like, well, obviously it was the Doctor and Joe. They've escaped. And he's like, oh, no. And he's like, yes, we must find them. And that's those two scenes back to back. It's about as quick as I described it as well, if not quicker. Yeah. It's doing that classic Who thing where we're in a scene for 5 seconds before we cut to the next scene.
Every scene with Hart in this episode just feels like filler. It's like, oh yeah, if this is what's going on in the plot, we're kind of suspicious of what's going on here, but yeah, we're suspicious. That's our whole gimmick this episode.
The only thing that Hart is good for in this episode was introducing the submarine captain. Other than that, he had no purpose.
Also, there's a point in this episode where I'm like, why is the Master still ordering Trenchard around? He's useless. Just do whatever you want to do yourself.
Yeah, but he's got a charm, you know? He likes golf, and the Master can appreciate that. Then we get my favorite scene in the episode. It's my favorite scene. So the submarine is sinking. It crashes down into the ground. And you know, the captain and his first mate, they're like, what's going on? You know, the ship's fine, everything's going well. Then we start hearing this thumping, this clanging, and it just echoes, and it's absolutely terrifying.
The sound design is just perfect as well. It feels so atmospheric.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, it's what I'm going to use for the cold open for this, because it's like, it feels tense. It's terrifying, and the captain's like, is it diver? No, the captain, the first mate's like, is it divers? And the captain's like, that's impossible for it to be divers. Then we get a radio from somewhere else in the submarine. They're like, they're here. They're attacking. They're coming in. And it's that classic horror movie where they don't say what it is. They just keep using the pronouns they. And obviously we know it's the Sea Devils, but then, and credit where credit is due with the terrible soundtrack.
Yeah.
And the horrible audio sting for the Sea Devils that were going on for 2 episodes before this. When the guy goes, they're here, and he screams down the mic, and then you just get that Sea Devil sting. I think it was really, really effective,
Yeah. So the actor playing the bearded man, the captain, had been in Doctor Who before, but he hated like the overacting, the reaction shots in classic where we're like, and we just kind of. So here he goes very subtle, like, his eye is twitching, but as he's on the radio, his subtle acting is really good here because it feels like he's trying to remain control, but yet he's just like, I'm scared. My eye is twitching. I'm scared.
Yeah, really, really good scene. Honestly, the scene saved the episode for me.
Also, the camera works really well. It's like a tilted angle. It works because it's a shipwrecked submarine.
Yeah,
it's great. God's sake.
Then we cut to Trenchard for half a second for him to say, "Get the guards after the Doctor and Joe." We could have assumed he would have done that off screen. I don't think we really need to see that sort of thing on screen.
In the original script, Trenchard would have ordered the guards to be like, kill them on sight, which would make sense. I like the whole, just make them live, because, what's coming up next is kind of a dangerous situation for him to get out of. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, so we find out that the Doctor and Joe are running towards the beach where there's just so happens to be a minefield. And Trenchard's like, we've got to stop them. The Master's like, no, let them go to the minefield because we'll test out the new device to get the Sea Devils out to attack, the Doctor and that, and we'll trap them using this device. And he turns it on, and then I can't tell if it's the soundtrack or if it's a sound effect that's whirring the machine. Like, it's impossible to tell the difference.
And it's like the worst sound ever. It's just, again, like most of Doctor Who is just noise. Classic Who is just noise. Yeah. It just beeps and boo.
Yeah, it's not great. We then also cut to the Doctor and Joe on what appears to be the windiest day ever. There's no audio, thankfully. The great soundtrack's carrying us over for this scene, but their hair is just going mental. Like...
Or something about John Pertwee's hair flowing in the wind. I really like it. It really works. But yeah, his little cape is just flowing as well.
Yeah. And this is also the scene that really made me laugh because, I must have not been looking at my TV when we first saw the car, so I didn't get a proper good look at it until this scene with all 6 guys coming on the car, driving along the beach and climbing out of it. It's like a clown car.
Yeah.
Also, so I assume for whatever reason the sand dunes at this beach are just insanely high, because the Doctor has to get some rope to climb down them.
Yeah.
And, he jumps down them, and then we cut to Joe, who has to jump down them as well, and it looks like she just plants her face immediately into the sand.
Yeah, there's a reason for this. Okay, so this abseiling sequence was delayed 2 days due to fog, and we're talking about the bad weather here, and it's obviously still windy as we're shooting this. So originally the 2 men who were going to be the stunt doubles for John and Katie dropped out because obviously we were waiting 2 days to shoot this scene and they couldn't be paid anymore. John offered to do the abseiling himself because he's a man of action, and Katie was asked if she had done it before, and she made the mistake of saying yes, even though she hadn't done it before. So on her first take, as she's going down, she rips her trousers, and she has severe rope burn due to the rope. So yeah, it doesn't sound like it's fun.
Right, so That'll be why it looks like a bit of a messy jump, because it was a messy jump, because it honestly looks like she just falls flat on her face.
Literally our second time doing this.
Ucha.
Not fun. John Pertwee is excellent at it, though. It's amazing how well John Pertwee does his action, considering he has a bad back and a bad leg, and he just chooses to do all the action scenes himself. He's like a regular Tom Cruise.
Yeah, well, probably afterwards he sits down, he goes, that was a terrible idea. But, you know, in the moment he can do it.
And at the beginning of episode 4, he has a big entry. We'll get to that.
So they're running along the beach. The clown car empties and everyone's aiming guns at them. The Master and Trenchard are behind them with their device, and over to the right of them is a minefield. They're completely encircled. When I was first watching this, I missed them mentioning that there was a minefield, so them suddenly cutting to a minefield made me laugh out loud, where I went, what? Why is there a minefield suddenly? But they did set it up previously, so that was my bad for not realizing that they did set it up, but it led to a great moment for me, honestly.
But yeah, this is like the perfect setup for a cliffhanger. The Doctor is like in an open space, but yet everywhere he turns, he's completely fucked. There's guards to the left of him, minefield to the right, Sea Devil in front of him, Master behind him. There's no way out of a situation, or so. Obviously, there is a way out of a situation because he has to survive. He's the main character, but
Yeah, it's. I missed my opportunity to make the reference to the song, but I'll do it now. It's Master to the left of them, guns to the right, and he's stuck in the middle with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good cliffhanger as well, because it's like it's like a genuine impossible scenario to get off, as opposed to the Master threw a knife at him,
And yeah. And so, like, one last thing I will say about this episode in terms of, like, behind-the-scenes trivia. The shot of the Sea Devil is extremely hard. The shot of him getting out of the water is extremely hard to do because there's a problem with the masks that caused water to fill inside. So every time a Sea Devil is getting out there, the actor inside is almost drowning, which sounds terrifying. There's nobody there to rescue the actors because there's no health and safety measures in this 1970s, which sounds really rough. The original plan was to have sub-aqua breathing apparatus under the costumes, but the mask was too close to their head to fit air tubes, and this ruined plans of undersea shots of the devils in their natural habitat. Yeah. It sounds rough for these actors.
It does. Yeah, that sounds like a terrible time. I will say, I think the shot of the Sea Devil climbing out of the ocean is cool as heck. I think it looks really good.
It's kind of the most memorable part of this episode. It really works well, and the costume is pretty darn decent as well. It's
decent
great.
From a distance. When they do the close-ups for the costume, it's horrendous. But from a distance, it's really good.
Yeah, the close-ups just don't work, but from a distance,
dead eyes.
Really
it's the dead eyes that. Yeah.
I wonder if they fixed that in the modern series, because we haven't really seen too much footage of the Sea Devils in the new episode yet. I presume they'll CGI the eye so it blinks sometimes.
Yeah, and that'll do wonders, honestly.
I think a mix with CGI and like practical costumes would be the perfect route to do it.
I think that's the perfect route to do any special effect. Is do a practical effect and then touch up the details you can't master with CGI. It makes everything look better.
I will say in Warriors of the Deep, which is like the sequel episode to this, where the Sea Devils team up with the Silurians, I think there's some shots where the Sea Devils actually blink. So that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that was a nightmare for the puppeteer.
Yeah.
But, the Sea Devils climb out. We get a close-up of the Sea Devils, we were saying, that doesn't look super great. And then we cut to a close-up of the Doctor as well, as he's looking on, and then the audio sting comes in as we're cutting to the credits. How's the Doctor going to get out of this one? And that's the end of episode 3. So, Scott, what did you think of part 3 of the Sea Devils?
Yeah, it's one of those episodes where I wouldn't even say the first 5 minutes are good, because the first 5 minutes is just the last 5 minutes of the last episode. So yeah. It's one of those episodes where The bookends are very good, but the middle is just like a whole load of padding. There's some great moments between the Doctor and Joe, as we've said. There's great moments between the Master and the Doctor. Overall, the episode isn't too great. It's fine. There's some great horror elements with the submarine as well. But yeah, apart from that, there's kind of nothing of value to this episode, I would say.
I think you could combine part 3 and 4 and make a really good part 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the same with part 2 and part 3, because part 2 was nothing as well. It's just...
yeah. That's the issue when you come into 6-part stories, is there's just too many episodes and not enough story.
I think there's a good, like, 80 to 90 minute episode in here. If you just combine all the parts and condense them down, there's some good stuff in here.
Yeah, I think part 3 is good. You're about to find out what we think about part 4 in a couple moments. I definitely think part 3 is the better of these two that we're looking at this week. I think part 3, it's got the submarine tension scene that I really like. The cliffhanger's good. The comedy segments with the Master and that, and Joe and the Doctor get on really, really well. Plot wise, it's kind of all over the place, but it's a fine, I'd say, mediocre episode of classic Doctor Who.
Yeah, for some reason I think watching classic Doctor Who, because when I watched this, I watched it in like the space of 2 or 3 days, and I think that's a perfect way to do it, because you don't feel like it's empty, because you're just immediately going to the next one. You kind of forget all the bad parts of the last one. I can't imagine waiting 6 weeks for a story to unfold. It's like you sit down on a Saturday night and you're like, nothing happened this week except the Doctor got stuck on a beach. That's all that happened.
Yeah. The Doctor got arrested, then he escaped, then he got stuck on a beach.
Yeah, it's surprising this show lasted 26 years doing this format of just 4 to 6 parts. It's something that kind of doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Imagine. Yeah. It definitely doesn't work for a modern eye. Like they couldn't pull this off like anymore.
Obviously, it works for a show because obviously doing a 6-parter is so much cheaper than doing a 1-parter, because you get the same actors, the same writer, the same director, the same cast, and just everything, all the same costumes.
You do one big shoot and you stretch it, and then you've got the next month and a bit of TV done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense from a production standpoint, but from a audience standpoint and a structure standpoint, it's not great.
Yeah.
But with that, we shall jump right in to episode 4, part 4 of the Sea Devils, where nothing happens.
But it's different this time. Everybody saw it, even Trenchard and the guards.
And you think Trenchard will confirm your story?
I doubt it. The Master's got some sort of hold over him.
The Doctor's seen these creatures before.
Oh, I'm quite sure he has, Miss Grant.
In some caves in Derbyshire. You see, they want to take over the Earth.
Oh, really, Miss Grant?
Well, we'll retake it if you like. And what they're going to do is...
Joe. All right. Let me deal with the explanations. Look, it's like this.
Only cheese, I'm afraid. The best the steward could do.
Oh, that's super. Thanks very much.
For heaven's sakes, Joe. Do you think this is a picnic? All right. Well, let's forget about the Sea Devils. What about Trenchard trying to take us prisoners, then?
Well, I only have your word for that, haven't I?
All right. What about the theft of your electronic spares? Surely you'll agree that happened.
Since I was here at the time, yes.
The Master stole those parts to make his calling device.
His what?
Well, he's developed some way of communicating with them. Probably an ultra-high-frequency sonic beam. He's rather good. Come on.
No, thank you.
Sandwich?
Thank you.
Doctor!
I'm so sorry.
So the episode begins exactly where the last episode left off. We actually, I think, much like episode 3, it shows quite a bit of the previous scene instead of picking right up from the cliffhanger. But as we remember, the Doctor's surrounded by soldiers, by the Master, and by a Sea Devil coming out of, you guessed it, the sea.
Oh my god, what a twist.
The Doctor decides we're just going to run through the minefield that's to the side of us. And they dart off that way, while the Sea Devil decides it wants to switch sides for a quick moment and shoots and kills the unit soldiers, because it wouldn't be an episode of Classic Who without murder within the first 2 minutes. There's been I'd say there's been a lack of murder. There's been a lot of off-screen deaths so far. This is the first, this is our first group death, and now it feels like classic Who. You're watching 5 or 6 guys die at the same time.
Yeah, the violence has been surprisingly lackluster this few episodes we've been covering. When John Pertwee falls to the ground, he accidentally landed on the sonic screwdriver and bruised his rib, which sounds very painful.
The Doctor and Joe go over to the minefield. It's covered in barbed wire, and the Doctor's solution to getting over this barbed wire is to simply throw his body on top of it. It struck me as not the best way to get past barbed wire.
I just love that the third Doctor is up for anything. Just jump on top of barbed wire is the best solution.
I loved when he did it the second time, because he's doing it for Joe to get by, and the second time he does it, Joe just kind of steps through the bit that he didn't fall on.
This use of a sonic screwdriver, I love it. He's just basically using it to set off the mines, which is perfect.
Yeah, it's a pretty good use. This is we were thinking, is this the first time we've seen the sonic screwdriver in Classic Who? But no, we apparently saw it before. With
it was at the end. It was at the end of the Hand of Fear, where the Doctor's underneath the console fixing the TARDIS.
Yeah, this is a much more prominent use of the screwdriver, though. It's the first time it's like plot use.
Yeah, so I was looking up like a video with every single use of a sonic screwdriver every day, and it's like a 25-minute long video. Only the first 2.5 minutes are from the classic series. I mean, all the rest of the 23 minutes are just from the new series, which is insane to think about.
If you were to do another cut of the amount of times the Doctor shot a gun, there'll be like a minute and a half, if that, in Modern Who, and about 3 hours, I'd bet, in Classic Who.
We should make a video of every time the Doctor holds a gun. That'd be 800 odd hours. It's gonna be a while.
But the Doctor's working their way through the minefield with the sonic screwdriver. The Sea Devil finishes killing off the unit guys, which Trenchard doesn't seem that fussed about. And the Master's like, why is the Sea Devil not going after the Doctor? He amps up his machine that called the Sea Devil out, and it makes an annoying noise. Not the most annoying noise you'll hear this episode, I assure you. And the Sea Devil goes charging after the Doctor right into the minefield. The Doctor sets off the mines, and then the Sea Devil makes the most horrendous scream you've ever heard and runs back into the ocean. It's like, it's a fine opening, and it's the classic Doctor Who method of, the cliffhanger before wasn't really much of a cliffhanger because they solve it in 2 minutes.
Yeah, 100%. That's every cliffhanger. It gets kind of repetitive after a while. You just realize.
I like the inventiveness of it. You have to think, how are they going to get out with this next time? How are they going to solve this problem in 2 minutes? And usually it's, they got away with it. They missed.
But yeah, the mines going off looks pretty decent effect. I think we only had enough budget to take 3 takes of this, and we got it on the first take, and it looks pretty decent.
Nice. It's just in classic Who fashion, once the Sea Devil runs away, we then cut to the Doctor continuing to scan for mines, and then cut back to the Sea Devil to make sure we watch it run into the ocean. So we're not confused as to where it goes. It just drags on that 3 seconds too long.
Yeah, funnily enough, the script for this episode was actually going to be longer than 25 minutes, so they had to cut down the script, which is funny. Apparently the way they did that was by cutting out a lot of the exterior scenes, which have cost more money, and just condensing more of the exterior scenes instead. Which is why most of this episode is studio-based, which is not my favourite kind of classic Doctor Who, just watching him stand around in a room.
It's one of the reasons why the Web Planet, yes, I've still not watched the finale for it, is so hard to get through, because it's all studio entirely, and it's bad. So we cut to Hart, who is panicking that the submarine still hasn't surfaced. As if we remember from last episode, the submarine has sunk to the bottom, and it led to a very good scene, and they're getting attacked by Sea Devils. So I think he says that they need to send out for help, don't they? And then we cut to the submarine where there's a guy in a very bright orange suit, because I assume he's about to go into a... What's the name of that suit called? deep sea diving suit, I guess. You know, the classic like BioShock one.
Yeah, it's called a sub-escape suit. They wanted these suits from the Navy, but the Navy would only provide them for the suits on location, so the costume designer had to find a good substitute, and it looks pretty much identical.
Yeah. And you know, 'cause we presume that guy's about to go out to see what the problem is. And then also, we find that the door's getting hot on the other side. And why, I wonder why the door would be getting hot. But, you know, if you remember from episode 2, the Sea Devils can melt doors. Oh, no. So the submarine captain's like, okay, small arms, everybody gets a gun, because this is classic Who, and now we're about to amp up the violence, baby. Also, I just want to mention the way that these people hold their guns. I don't know much about guns, so I might be completely mistaken here, but I feel like you're not supposed to put your hand over the bit that's a really hot vent.
Yeah, I did notice that. And also, you say there's going to be a lot of violence. What happens is we cut to a very close-up. Yeah. We cut to a close-up of the Sea Devil's dead eyes as he kind of looks around a bit, and there's noise. And then the scene ends. I presume he just kills everyone off screen.
He doesn't remember he might kill a few people, but the sea captain and stuff's fine because they start touching. Okay. They start holding hands later on. Remember something like that. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
But we see the door melting, which I'm still really impressed with that effect. I think that effect really holds up well. I think it looks really good.
Yeah, Peter Day's special effects in this episode is excellent. Just all the submarine shots, of the model shots, just look great.
So we cut to Trenchard and the Master, and my confusion on the brainwashing scenario deepens with every passing moment.
Yeah.
Because I was listening back onto parts of episodes 1 and 2, and I think it's in episode 2, the Doctor says that Trenchard is clearly brainwashed.
Yeah.
And he's figured out that Trenchard's brainwashed. And then obviously in episode 3, the Doctor seems to have forgotten that he's figured that out. And now, here in episode 4, Trenchard is complaining to the Master that the Master never told him that they were working with Sea Devils, and he thought that they were working with enemy agents. So, you know, Russia, China, whatever, enemies of the state. So I'm really confused as to why Trenchard would have thought that, and why he would have cared if he was brainwashed, or maybe he just wasn't brainwashed. Maybe they forgot that he was brainwashed.
Yeah. And also, the Master has to have a conversation with him, basically being like, oh yeah, the Sea Devils want to enslave the entire Earth, they want to destroy the Earth, which is something that he shouldn't have to do if he has a power of brainwashing him. Like... He doesn't need to have a conversation with him.
He has to convince him that the Sea Devils are like this enemy worth defeating, or worth conquering under your will, essentially. Yeah, it's a weird scene. I mean,
on the script, I guess it's a fairly compelling scene because this is how people convince people that people from other countries are bad people. They just have some kind of charm or anything else just to convince people, but it just doesn't work in a show.
Yeah, it doesn't work because, you know, you've established this guy's brainwashed, not brainwashed, brainwashed and not brainwashed within the same 3 episodes.
I guess maybe the Master's hold on him is just kind of slipping. Is the intent?
It's not communicated in that way at all. No. It's communicated that Trenchard isn't brainwashed and that he's a lackey for the Master and that he's been duped into working with him.
Yeah, I do wonder if the novel tries to clear that up a little bit. I guess we have to read the novel now.
Readings for nerds. We then cut to the Doctor and Joe, who stand against a bush for about 15 seconds. And that's that scene. And they say that they need to go get back to Hart as they're hiding away from the unit troops. One thing I will mention, just because there's nothing to talk about in that scene, is I'm actually really impressed with the scan that BritBox got for this episode. It is crisp. It's Blu-ray clear. It is really, really good.
It looks really solid, and that goes to the restoration team. Just the people who put these DVDs together. This is probably DVD quality. And the people who put these DVDs together do such a great job because this is videotape and it looks really crisp and clean.
Yeah. And some of the episodes, you know, depending on certain scenes, it can get a bit rough and a bit scratchy looking. Yeah. But this episode, for the most part, I think looks very, very nice.
some of the stock footage looks rather rough, like of the naval footage. So yeah, they're being chased by a horse and two people in little cars. It's not much of a threat, but that's because there's no budget this episode. The director wanted more horses, but run out of stuntmen, which
that'll do
which
it.
is
That'll
always the case.
Yeah. So we then come back to the Master and Trenchard, where Trenchard's saying that, the Doctor and that have escaped, and that he's going to head back to Hart. The Master's like, oh no, that's not going to be a good deal. Hart's going to come over asking questions because they're going to tell him anything. And Trenchard's like, yeah, what should we do if Hart comes back? And the Master says, simple, just don't answer the door, pretend you're not home. And he's like, okay, fair enough, I can do that. But what if units start getting involved? Because, I'm supposed to be working with Unit, and they'll find out that I'm not a good guy. And the Master goes, shut up, I'm going to kill you soon anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's like very heavy foreshadowing, it's like your troubles will soon be over. Like,
yeah, I am so surprised that the Master just keeps up with Trenchard for 4 episodes. It feels like he should have been gotten rid of like episode 1 or 2. It's
I
just,
know. Yeah.
Why is the Master still hanging around with Trenchard? Just kill him and move on.
He doesn't do anything either, does he?
Yeah.
That I can remember. Maybe I'll get my memory refreshed going over the episode again. But from what I remember...
Yeah, basically all Trenchard does is to be the guard, to keep up appearances that he's being kept in prison. That was the first 2 episodes at least. Now he's just like, but Master, this is bad.
Yeah.
That's basically his plot.
We then cut to the submarine with, again, a very nice looking miniature shot of it driving through the ocean. And we're inside the submarine where the Sea Devil was attacking, but now they seem to be best friends. And the Sea Captain and the Sea Devil hold hands briefly and they lock eyes. It's like, oh. But the Sea Devil's like pointing them towards the base. If you remember the base where Jabba the Hutt was living, that's where he's telling the submarine to go. And the first mate's like, hey, Sea Captain, come chat to me over here. Shouldn't we kill all the Sea Devils? And the captain goes, no, I want to find out where they live. Then we'll kill all the Sea Devils. I'm sure that'll go well for us. It's fun. It's an interesting concept that the Sea Devils would team up with the submarine guys for whatever reason. I just don't know how that would have got communicated. This from the scene where we left where all the guns are pointed at the Sea Devil to now they're working with it. What happened in between there? And I feel like they don't know, and that's why we don't see it.
The Sea Devils really aren't characterized well because we're 4 episodes in and none of them has spoken, none of them have really communicated. Next episode, one of them will speak, but only one will speak. And it's not much of a personality even when they speak, and it's just, it's just, and also the Sea Devils being called to the shore by the Master is a bit of a lazy thing because I would prefer just seeing the Sea Devils be their own independent people,
Yeah, but instead they're led by like the sonar signal the Master sends out, and they don't have a mind of their own, and they seem to be thoughtless murder machines.
Yeah. If you compare that to like the Silurians, and you haven't seen the classic era Silurians, but they're very much the same as they are now. It's like they have personalities. Although it's like
they love Victorian women.
Yeah, it's a bit two-dimensional their personalities in the classic series, but it's still personalities, and they all have like personalities, it's kind of important.
Personality. The hit YouTube video by by the hit YouTube channel Mess, personalities. Yeah, you're right.
And also, the Sea Captain calls the Sea Captain calls the Sea Devil Green Gilbert, which is slang for bogies, which I never knew about.
That's a really old-timey slang. Yeah.
It really is.
Then we get a really long scene that is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant scene. It starts off. I thought it starts off. I thought a bit shaky. And then it turns into like just a brilliant Doctor Who scene, like a proper like this could fit into any era of Doctor Who scene.
Yeah, so this scene basically is just an exposition scene to remind viewers of what's been happening over the last 3 weeks and what happened to the Silurians. And it starts off with Joe being like, oh yeah, this is like the species found in Derbyshire in the caves, and the Doctor then explains the situation to Hart. It's like, oh no, is this just going to be exposition? But then the lady comes in with some sandwiches, and it just turns into comedic gold.
Yeah. She gives the sandwiches to Joe because Joe had asked them, and the doctor tells Joe off, like, why are you ordering sandwiches? We have got serious business to be doing. You cannot be eating sandwiches at this time. You know, we've got sea devils to deal with. Then he turns to talk back to Hart and give him some more exposition. Kind of forgets that he's just told Joe off and starts aimlessly eating the sandwiches, just absent-mindedly eating the sandwiches as he's talking. And it's compelling.
And then he offers the last slice to a lady who just came in.
Yeah, and she takes it. She takes this because I love that where he's eating. He's like, these are quite nice. Do you want one? Yeah. And then Joe tells the doctor off, and I love the receptionist is like, "I'll get you some more sandwiches, Joe. It's okay." And she leaves again. And I love when John Pert returns and he goes, "I'm so sorry," as he's putting the plate down. It's a great scene.
Yeah, I can just imagine any doctor doing that. It's such a doctorism. Mm-hmm. It's perfect.
Yeah.
But also, as we open the scene, Joe is drinking hot chocolate, and the doctor is actually drinking whiskey, which is very rare for the doctor to be drinking booze.
I thought that as well. That's the only thing I thought until he started eating sandwiches. I was like, it's weird to see the doctor drinking whiskey. You know?
Yeah. So this was back in the day, obviously, when alcohol and cigarettes were like pretty much regular on kids' TV programs. It's something that's been stopped quite a while now. If you go back like Iron Man 1, he's smoking cigars and drinking, and then we have to gently just stop his alcoholism.
Yeah,
which is a big trait for the Iron Man character.
It's a big storyline for Iron Man, isn't it? And it's the reason why they couldn't really do much with it in Iron Man 2. They like lightly touched on it.
So viewers were supposed to identify with Joe while seeing the Doctor as an adult. So that makes more sense of why
the
Joe
adults
wasn't
always steal
drinking
my sandwiches.
And also, the script was going to have the Doctor have his bare feet on the desk, wriggling his toes. I don't know why that was in the script or why it's important, but you know, if you wanted to see John Pert with his feet, you missed out.
This close, it's this close to them. One day. But a man comes in and he's like, "Oh, guys, I've got some new information for us. Let's go into the next room."
He basically comes in and is like, "Yeah, stop that boring exposition. Here's some new information."
Yeah. And basically, the new information this guy's got is he's found the submarine, and it's heading towards the naval base bit, the wee island thing. That we already know that the submarine's heading there, but in classic Who fashion, we're going to watch every character discover this information one at a time.
Yeah. To be fair on them, it's been a month since like the first episode.
But I mean, we literally saw the submarine decide where it's going this episode a few minutes ago.
True. But maybe kids were in the kitchen getting a cup of tea, you know?
Yeah, but maybe they should have thought about that before the show came on.
Maybe they should have just recorded it on Sky Plus, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Or watched it on BritBox. Why didn't they do that? So we cut to the Master, who's working on a machine, and it's just making random noises, which, you know, I, for at least most of the time I was listening to the noise, assumed it was the soundtrack until the Master unplugged the machine and the sound stopped. To be fair, it might still be the soundtrack. I have no way of knowing.
Yeah, the soundtrack is another thing. Yeah,
but Trenchard comes in and he's like, maybe we should call the police, you know, and the armed forces to help deal with the Sea Devils because they're going to be a mighty hard fight, I think. And the Master basically dismisses him, tells him, you know, shut up, go away, I'm working on this thing. And Trenchard's like, what is that thing? And he's like, shut up and go away. And the Trenchard's like, yeah, okay, I will. And then the Master plugs back in the machine and it makes some more noise and we cut away. It's, you know, a short scene with just random noises happening in it. Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we focus on the noise of the machine for like a good 20 to 30 seconds at the very start.
There is 12 minutes left in this episode. We are halfway through, by the way.
And yeah, we saw the Doctor escape from a Sea Devil. And
the submarine's heading towards the base.
And people talking in rooms.
Yeah, about what's happened in the previous episodes. Okay, Jesus, I just paused it so it saves my ears a bit. So we're watching Sea Devils climb out the ocean for about 30 seconds. It's not that interesting. If you look at one of the Sea Devils, though, because you spoken, I think maybe the last week's episode or this week's episode, that the masks weren't really good for the water.
Mhm.
As one of the sea devils raises up, just like shaking its head.
Yeah. Yep, I have that in my notes. He's shaking his head to avoid drowning.
Yeah, which is fun. And we cut to Trenchard, and he's saying something. I think he's contacting the authorities, but I can't focus on anything that's getting said in these next few scenes because the soundtrack is this high-pitched, like, you know, if you're doing, like, what frequency can I hear at sort of test?
Yeah.
It's that across
It's
multiple scenes. It is just... And it's really loud as well. Like, it drowns out the dialogue. I don't even... It's horrible. Absolutely. It's the worst part of the soundtrack.
Again, this is like a thing that's recurring throughout classic Doctor Who. I don't know why. It's just noise. Like, is this what people in the 70s just watched? Just noise? Was there a show that was just focused on loud noises?
Yeah, it drowns out any gainable information, and you can't focus on even the visuals because you're so like my ears are bleeding. Like
and you know, when I was watching it on my TV, it was okay, it was fine, it was annoying but fine. But listening to it on my headphones for this show, yikes!
I watched this episode on the bus with earphones plugged in, and it was the worst experience. It was horrible.
But to go back to the sea devils coming out of the water, they couldn't hear the director shouting action from under the water, which is something that is rough. The feet of the sea devils would often fall off underwater, and the heads would float on the surface. And the heads had to be filled with water and remained anchored, which is, yeah, obviously the water kept on rushing in, which isn't great. And the director, Michael E. Bryant, wanted to do more takes to get the idea that there are hundreds of sea devils, but he had to do it with 2 takes. One of them walking out of the water, and another of them just slightly in the water. So, yeah. We only get the delusion that there's only 12 sea devils.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it was a fun day at work to be the sea devils at all.
And you know it's very dark. That's because we shot it like last thing in the day, and we just ran out of time.
Yeah, it was really dark. Yeah, I didn't even think to question that. But yeah, no, those shots were. It was like nighttime. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, rough production. Like Jesus.
Okay, so we watched the Sea Devil karate chop a dude in the neck. We cut to Trenchard, who's trying still to get through to... I'm assuming it's going to be like Unit or somebody he's trying to get through to.
Yeah.
Nobody's picking up, which is, I think, strange because he's the guy in charge of keeping the Master, who's like enemy number 1 prisoner. Why would people be avoiding his calls? But maybe they just think he's going to talk about golf somewhere.
I think it was established that the phones don't kind of work correctly because the Doctor picks up the phone in like episode 1 or 2 and it doesn't work. But I'm not sure if it's because he doesn't have like security personnel or whatever.
Dunno, but we know the phones don't work in a moment because the Sea Devils start ripping up the phone cords and start killing people left and right as Trenchard opens up his desk drawer and pulls out a gun. Dun, 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 dun. I heard that gun belonged to Chekhov.
Yeah, he picks up the gun and it makes some kind of alien sound effect, which is the music.
Yeah, he also takes about 15 seconds to unlock the drawer, and it's a very stiff drawer as well, and he struggles to pull it open. It's great.
It's quite a long scene for quite a short concept.
Yeah.
It's like, he sits down, gets a gun, takes 30 seconds. Great.
And then we cut to unit guards walking. It's one of my favorite reaction shot that any extra has done in Classic Who so far. I think it's the 2 guards walking side by side. The guard they stop. They see the Sea Devils, and there's the guard closest to the frame just goes, but he his jaw drops, his mouth goes open, but he doesn't make a sound. It's just. It's so cartoonish. It's especially if you compare it to last week where we had the sea captain who was purposefully trying not to give a cartoonish reaction. He was trying to keep it as grounded as possible, and then this dude comes along.
This dude is kind of what I think he was talking about, just the overacting on some of the extras here. Just wow,
it's good stuff. Then we get our first real big action scene. I say action scene. The alarm starts going off and it's horrible and it's just a lot of noise as we watch the Sea Devils shoot a couple guards. Then Trenchard comes running down a hall looking all confused. Guard's like, they've killed most of the guys off screen. There's just me left. And Trenchard's like, okay, go to my office and try to get them on the phone. Even though they weren't picking up to me, maybe they'll pick up to you. I'm going to go and try and save the master, because that's my responsibility. Then he unloads a bunch of bullets into the Sea Devils. It looks like one dies. It's hard to tell. It cuts away before any of them fall over or react.
Also, you don't see what they're shooting at on screen at the same time. You don't see the Sea Devils and the humans on screen at the same time, which makes it rough to understand where is everyone in relation to each other, you know?
Everybody's shooting off screen,
Like, there's a point where Sea Devils leave, and there's a guy on the ground shooting at them, and then Trenchard comes in, and then all of a sudden the Sea Devils are standing there, and they shoot at them, which is confusing.
Yeah, did the Sea Devils just wait for them to have their conversation?
It's not staged well, but you know, it's 1972 and they only have like 2 hours to shoot this whole episode. It's rough.
And their budget was like a Mars bar.
They spent like all their budget on the heads of the Sea Devils.
Yeah. We then cut to the Master, who's still fiddling with his machine, and dun dun dun, the Sea Devils come in, and behind them, Trenchard's dead body. And the Master's sitting there nodding like, yes, good. But yeah, that's the end of our boy Trenchard. May he play golf in heaven.
It's a pretty solid reveal of Trenchard's dead body.
Yeah.
I was just bad mouthing the staging, but the staging of walking through the door and they step aside to reveal Trenchard behind them is pretty decent.
Yeah. But that's the end of Trenchard. I as far as random classic Who kind of side villains go, not my favorite, but I definitely probably won't forget him. He was memorable. I'll give him that.
He mumbled and he played golf.
Yeah, that's all you need. We cut to the Doctor and Hart again, as they're like, we're losing signal of the submarine, let's get going. That's basically the scene. And they all get in cars and drive off. Woohoo.
Yeah, so the next shot is them driving up to the castle, and apparently they had big conversations, just like a battle against the Navy, being like, can we get the Navy cars to this location? And the Navy captain refusing, because obviously they had to travel by sea to get the cars over there. It's like, what's the point in the end? Just to watch the Royal Navy Land Rovers drive up to the castle.
Yeah.
And also the scene was to open up on like a shot of dead bodies just lying on the grass outside, and then swoop to the castle. I mean, which would have been cool. But
that would have been cool. That would have been very classic Who, very very grim and death filled.
Yeah.
We cut to the Doctor running through the halls of the castle over the dead bodies. Eventually they find Trenchard, and Hart is like, he's like, my golf buddy. And he's like, how did this happen? And, you know, the Doctor could have just said, you know, he was quite obviously brainwashed. But no, instead he used, and I'm going to say it the way they say it, patriotism. Instead of patriotism, patrism, which I guess is just an old British way, the BBC British way of saying it.
It sounds very British, but I do like this moment because it's like some decent social commentary, except for the fact it doesn't really work for Trenchard's character. I don't think it's not really being shown that he's patriotic at all, really.
Yeah, well, I guess the reason behind it was he was to protect the British Isles from this enemy agent of the Sea Devils, but yeah, it's not super effectively communicated that that's he just kind of seems like the Master's lackey because the Master needs a lackey.
Yeah.
Okay, then we cut back to the guy who's tracking the submarine, and the Doctor and the Hart come back. So they've driven all the way to the castle, looked at Trenchard's dead body, and travelled all the way back.
The thing about these 6 episodes is it's just the Doctor driving back and forth between the castle to the Navy, to the castle, to the Navy, to the castle, to the Navy, to the castle, to the Navy, and then he's going to go undersea.
Yeah. It's good. It's great. But they find out that the submarine's definitely heading towards the fort, which, you know, it's moving again. They're like, huzzah, let's go out there now and find out what's going on. More traveling. Woohoo.
And also, the woman secretary comes in and offers the man Kai, which is naval slang for cocoa. I don't know why we just don't call it Coco. I don't think it makes sense, but okay.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that it was that at all. I when she said it, I was like, I don't know what that is. Like,
yeah, it's one of those slang terms. It's just like, just call it Coco. It's already short enough.
yeah. Yeah, I suppose, but like even like the film industry has stuff like that, you know. Instead of saying recording, it's speed or speeding, you know. Which, are you saving that much time by saying sound speed? I'm just recording. Yeah, no.
Yeah, slang is dumb. Just call everything the same.
Yeah.
That's my political statement. Just call everything the same.
So we then cut to the Doctor riding on a boat to get to a bigger boat, and then he climbs off that boat onto the bigger boat, and he goes below deck.
Yeah.
That takes about like 2 minutes. Did you say?
Yeah. So basically, all these scenes of the boat is actually was recorded in like half a day, so we had no time to prepare anything. And it shows.
Yeah,
it really does show.
It's like a couple wide shots of them climbing onto the boat, and it's dull.
Yeah. So basically, the Doctor gets a pipe and a board ceremony, which is only used for ship's captains or senior officers or the Queen. So the Doctor gets some special treatment.
Well,
here.
He's the president of the world, so.
Yeah, he is technically. Yeah. Is he always the president of the world? If he goes back to like the day before he became president of the world, is he still the president of the world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
But yeah, basically the cameraman basically had to become the director here because obviously there was no time to prepare anything, and we're just sitting on another boat shooting John Pertwee and Katie Manning on another boat.
Yeah, and it was rough at sea because, geez, that camera is bobbing left and right. It's like sickening almost.
Yeah, but I do not blame them. It sounds like a rough day on set.
Yeah. Okay. So inside the bowels of the ship, they're deciding on who should go down to see the Sea Devils, and obviously the Doctor volunteers, and they don't really make much of a fuss about it. They go, okay, sound. And they stick the Doctor in this most terrifying, like, this is your grave type tube that goes into the ocean. Like, it's very 70s technology. Like,
yeah, so this is a diving bell, and it's a real like naval ship thing that obviously you can go down under the water in. And this was originally going to be used in Scotland for exercises, but we decided to move it to I wrote down some random gibberish for some reason.
Oh, that place. Maybe it's in Wales.
Well, we decided to move it to the Solent, which is the sea between the Isle of Wight and England, and we invited them along for the exercises instead. And so yeah, it's a real diving bell, and sometimes it's a studio set, and you can see that based on the window, which is, I think the window is just a green screen.
Yeah.
And we never bothered keying it in.
Yeah, it's a very green window, isn't it? Yeah, we spend quite a long time watching the thing get lowered and put into the ocean, which kind of has a nice little like documentarian almost charm to watching as to how it works. But
yeah, 100%. If you remember, this is the Navy just wanting to get their name out, just to get recruitments, and it's like, yeah, this is what you can do in the Navy. It's a good promotional material for them, I think.
Yeah. Fight alien sea monsters from the depths of hell. So we're following the Doctor as he lowers into the depths of the ocean, and he's on the radio the whole time. They've got a TV feed off him, and they're like, let us know if anything goes wrong. You're gonna hit the bottom in a few minutes. He's like, tally-ho. And he hits the bottom, and he's like, okay, how is everything? He's like, oh yeah, no, everything's chilled on here. Then he literally goes, wait a minute, as they're looking out the window, and we see a sea devil swimming up, and it looks kind of cool, but it's really hard to kind of make out the sea devil from the like massive amounts of green that's all over the screen. Yeah,
it takes a while for it to come in like focus, and even when it's in focus, it's way too close to the camera for comfort.
Yeah. And then the TV feed that's they're watching in the boat of the Doctor starts going statically, and it cuts out. And they're like, okay, get him up. And we watched for quite a long time as they're pulling the sea bell out of the ocean.
it's such a long build up to that cliffhanger.
It is a really long build up to the cliffhanger, but once they get it out the ocean, I think they handled this cliffhanger really, really, really well.
Yeah.
I love how Hart goes into it, looking for the doctor. He looks up and he comes back out, and I was expecting him to be like, he's gone, and then and cut to the credits. But no, he looks at Joe, and he just gives her a look that she goes and she runs over to the thing, and then you see just before she's about to go into the sea battle, she's like takes a breath almost, like, I don't know what I'm about to see, and she pulls her head up and she looks up at something, and then we hear the music. We don't know what she's looking at as we cut to the credits, and I thought it was actually a really, really good cliffhanger for this episode.
Well, we know she's looking at nothing because the doctor is vanished. He's gone, man. He's dead.
Or maybe it's his organs splayed out across the interior of the vessel. You don't know. You don't know.
Oh yeah, well, that happened. Yeah, that's how we turned into Tom Baker, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I still thought it was a pretty, like, just from a performance wise, I thought it was a really, really good cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's most classic Doctor Who stories have decent cliffhangers. It's just it always gets resolved straight away in the next episode, making the cliffhanger redundant.
I haven't seen the next episode yet, but I feel like it's going to have Joe take her head out of the bell and go, he's gone.
Yeah, pretty much.
But that does bring us to the end of episode 4 of this 6-part series, and I think it's the worst episode yet. What did you think?
Yeah. We just covered 2 of the worst episodes yet, so I think when I'm watching this on my own, I'm having fun. It's entertaining enough to be good, but we're sitting here pausing every 5 minutes to discuss what's happening, criticize it.
You're like, oh,
talk
nothing
about it.
happened. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think Classic Who fools you into thinking, oh yeah, this is a good episode, this is fun, stuff is happening. And then you realize, oh, nothing happened.
Yeah, nothing. Literally, like, we've covered episodes 3 and 4 in this episode. In episode 3, we weren't super hot on, but it had moments that were good.
Yeah.
This episode is so wasting away. It's 20 minutes of no story.
It says a lot for the best scene, the sandwich scene, is an exposition scene.
Yeah.
The best scene is exposition of what happened in previous episodes.
Yeah, it's not, you could skip this episode and the only thing you'd need to be caught up on is how the Doctor got undersea. In which case, you could figure that out pretty quick, because I'm sure they'll tell you.
Just watch the first 2 minutes, watch the last 2 minutes, and you're set for the next episode.
Oh, yeah. Maybe catch that bit in the middle where Trenchard's dead, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah. Which is often the case for most of Doctor Who, which is quite sad.
Yeah.
Again, I would just love to sit here and just put together like a 75-minute omnibus edition of the Sea Devils. That'd be great.
Yeah, BritBox should do that. They should do like omnibus episodes cut together as like little specials. I think that would be fun. But that does bring us to the end of this episode of Who Watches Who, Scott.
Yes.
Next week we've got the finale to the Sea Devils.
Yes, episodes 5 and 6.
5 and 6.
And then next month we're back to the Sea Devils again at the end of the month, hopefully.
Yeah,
we still haven't got a trailer. This is the 10th of March. We still haven't got a trailer. I wonder if it's ever going to happen.
It won't ever happen. It'll just come out. I think it's already out. They just haven't told you.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Where are we? Sea Devils. Yeah. So we got Sea Devils coming. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the finale because, this is the first time we've covered a Classic Who story over the course of an entire month. When we did the Demons, we did it over 2 weeks. And when we did the Hand of Fear, we managed to cover all 4 episodes in 1 episode somehow.
Yeah, which was...
Well, I say somehow. 1 episode was literally them walking for the 20 minutes. There wasn't too much to talk about. But this is the first time it's taken a month to get through a story. And it feels like we've been in this story for ages. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how it concludes.
Could you imagine being in 1972 and having to watch your story over the course of a month and a half? 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's impossible to know what we would have thought because we're looking at this with our modern eye, where we've got all these different TV shows and the different way of consuming media. We have no way of knowing what it was like I'm sure we would have thought it was great. It was like, this is the best way to consume TV, because it builds up the tension. It's like a nice 20 minutes. You get to sit down, have your tea, and get spooked by the spooky sea devils. But yeah, with a more modern eye, it's not as good as that. But this has been Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast. You can find us on Facebook at Who Watches Who, on Twitter at Watches Doctor, on YouTube at Who Watches Who. This podcast is available in video form on Spotify now as well, if I've done it right, and video form on YouTube and audio form wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm going to let Scott talk right now. In any few minutes, he can say some words.
And you can email us. I forgot what I was going to say. And you can email us at whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com. What's your favorite Trenchard moment?
Yeah.
Did you cry when he died?
I did.
I liked the part where he mumbled and played golf. That was top tier Doctor Who stuff.
I liked the part where he was brainwashed and then he wasn't brainwashed, and then he was, but not really.
My favorite
and also
part
when
of
he
the
got ghosted by Unit, that was great.
my favorite part of the episode was the part with all the noise.
Oh yeah. I think I need hearing aids now.
Perfect. But yeah, we'll be back next week with the Sea Devils.
Next week with the Sea Devils finale. I wonder if the Doctor will eat more sandwiches. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.